June 22nd, 1941. 3:15 hours. Near the Bug River, German-Soviet border. The night explodes without warning. Artillery flashes tear open the darkness. White-hot bursts ripping across the riverbanks. The ground shudders. Birds scatter into black sky. Engines roar to life. Thousands of them, low, mechanical thunder rolling east. You smell fuel and damp earth. You hear shouted orders, boots pounding mud, metal clanging against metal. German infantry surge forward, rifles tight in their hands. Pioneers rush the bridges. Behind them, Panzer III and Panzer IV tanks lurch into motion, headlights masked, exhaust coughing smoke. The invasion begins not with speeches or strategy, but with violence, noise, and unstoppable momentum. Somewhere behind the lines, clocks are synchronized. Operation Barbarossa is underway. At the front of one armored column, a command vehicle grinds forward. Inside, officers lean over maps illuminated by red bulbs. Their fingers trace arrows drawn months earlier, arrows pointing straight to Moscow. This is not a gamble. This is assumed inevitability. The Red Army will collapse. The Soviet state will fracture. Weeks, not months. That belief moves faster than the tanks. German soldiers cross the border with confidence bordering on boredom. They have done this before. Poland fell in weeks. France in 6. The Balkans crumpled almost overnight. Blitzkrieg, speed, shock, coordination, has rewritten warfare. And now it is unleashed on the largest landmass on Earth. The first Soviet positions vanish in fire and smoke. Border guards die at their posts. Airfields burn before planes can take off. Columns of prisoners stumble west, dazed, terrified, endless. Luftwaffe bombers drone overhead, methodical, precise. The sky belongs to Germany. By noon, entire sectors have collapsed. Reports flow back to headquarters. Breakthroughs everywhere. Encirclements forming. Soviet units surrendering without orders. The numbers are staggering. Tens of thousands captured in days. Maps are updated with casual confidence. Arrows push deeper. Smolensk, Kiev, Moscow. In Berlin, champagne corks will pop before summer ends. But at the front, something else is already taking shape. Subtle, quiet, easy to dismiss. The distances are wrong. Columns advance all day and never seem to reach the next objective. Roads stretch endlessly east, dissolving into dust. Fuel trucks lag behind, engines overheating. Infantry march until their feet bleed, then keep going. Forests swallow sound. Rivers appear where maps promise dry crossings. The land does not compress like France. It expands. Still, the momentum holds. Soviet counterattacks are clumsy, uncoordinated, shattered by German firepower. Red Army tanks burn in fields. Cavalry charges die against machine guns. To German officers, it confirms everything they believed. Russia is strong only in size, and size can be cut apart. Yet at night, as engines cool and men collapse beside their vehicles, the war does not feel finished. The darkness feels deeper, the silence longer. Fires burn on the horizon, but the horizon itself never seems closer. A lieutenant studies his map again. The line to Moscow still stretches impossibly far. And somewhere beyond that darkness, unseen, unmeasured, the Soviet Union is not collapsing. It is absorbing the blow. July 10th, 1941. 6:40 hours. West of Smolensk. Morning heat shimmers over columns that should have stopped days ago. Panzer engines idle unevenly, metal ticking as it cools. Dust hangs in the air so thick it coats teeth and eyes. Men cough, wipe their faces, drink sparingly. Every canteen matters now. The road ahead looks the same as the road behind. Flat, endless, deceptive. General Heinz Guderian's 2nd Panzer Group pushes forward with mechanical precision. Orders snap through radios. Units leapfrog. Encirclements close like steel jaws. Soviet formations are cut off in pockets, so vast they take days to collapse. Prisoners arrive in columns, ragged, exhausted, silent. By the numbers, this is victory on a scale never seen. By the ground beneath their boots, it feels different. Fuel trucks arrive late, if they arrive at all. Ammunition lorries bog down in ruts that deepen by the hour. Dust turns to mud with the first summer rains. Thick, glue-like, unforgiving. Vehicles sink to their axles. Horses die in harness. Recovery crews work until their hands bleed, only to abandon machines they cannot free. The Red Army does not shatter the way Germany expected. It bends. It retreats. It vanishes. Then it strikes. From Trillines, from villages that appeared empty, from riverbanks at dawn, Soviet infantry launched sudden counterattacks, not to win ground, but to delay, to bleed, to disappear again. Snipers haunt crossroads. Artillery fires blind barges, then relocates before German guns can respond. It is not elegant. It is not fast, but it is relentless. German officers begin to notice something unsettling. Soviet units keep reforming. New divisions appear where none should exist. Fresh tanks roll out of forests, crew but numerous. The enemy does not seem to be running out of men. Maps no longer feel authoritative. Intelligence reports contradict each other. Units outrun their own flanks. Entire regiments operate without knowing what lies to their left or right. Still, the advance continues. Smolensk burns. The city falls after savage fighting, but the victory tastes bitter. German losses mount. Tanks were down faster than they could be repaired. Spare parts are already short. Mechanics cannibalize wrecks in the open, working under fire, knowing replacements may never come. The war is supposed to be decided by now. Instead, it stretches. At night, men lie beside their vehicles, staring at stars they do not recognize. The sky feels larger here. The silence feels heavier. Fires glow on the horizon, but the horizon never closes in. Some officers begin to whisper about Moscow, not as a destination, but as a distance. A terrifying one. Guderian studies his reports by lamplight. He sees the numbers, kilometers advanced, divisions encircled, prisoners taken. On paper, everything still points toward triumph. But beneath the figures, another truth presses in. The army is moving faster than its supply system can survive. Speed was Blitzkrieg's soul. Now speed is stretching it thin. Soviet resistance grows sharper. Counterattacks coordinate better. Artillery strikes land with purpose. Airfields reappear after being bombed. Commanders who fled weeks earlier are suddenly back in control. The Red Army is learning, and learning quickly. One evening, a staff officer points a map, tracing the route east with a finger that hesitates just a moment too long. After Smolensk, he says quietly, "It's still very far." No one answers. Because for the first time since the invasion began, the question is no longer if the Germans will reach Moscow. It is how, and whether the army that arrives there will still be strong enough to matter. August 3rd, 1941. 14:20 hours. East of Smolensk. The heat is merciless. Steel burns to the touch. Sweat stings eyes already raw from dust. Engines overheat in the open. Hoods propped up like wounded mouths gasping for air. Men stripped to undershirts. Helmets hanging loose. Discipline softening under the sun. This is supposed to be the last hard push. Berlin says the Red Army is finished. Intelligence estimates claim the Soviets have lost millions. Killed, captured, broken. The belief spreads down the ranks like a fever. One more effort. One final drive. Then Moscow. But the land refuses to cooperate. The roads vanish into fields. Fields turn into marsh. Marsh swallows vehicles whole. Supply convoys crawl. Stretched into thin, fragile lines that beg to be cut. Every kilometer forward demands another kilometer protected behind. Soviet aircraft appear more often now. Not in great numbers, but enough. Low-flying IL-2 slash at columns. Rockets screaming. Cannons tearing through soft-skinned trucks. Fighters escort bombers that should not exist anymore. Air superiority, once absolute, is now contested in flashes of violence. German soldiers begin to realize something deeply wrong. The enemy is not collapsing. It is adapting. New Soviet tanks emerge, low-slung, broad-tracked, brutal. T-34s roll over ground where German panzers bog down, their sloped armor shrugging off hits that should kill them. Panzer crews fire again and again, Watching rounds spark and ricochet. KV-1s follow. Slow, impenetrable, unstoppable unless hit at close range. Men speak of them in hushed tones, as if naming them gives them power. Guderian requests permission to drive east, to exploit momentum before it evaporates. He believes speed can still save them. Strike hard. Strike now. Finish it before the weather turns, before the enemy reorganizes again. The response from Berlin is delayed. Then it arrives. Orders change. Panzer formations are redirected south, toward Kiev. Another encirclement. Another victory promised. The pause is temporary, they say. Moscow will wait. On the ground, the pause feels fatal. Days pass. Engines idle. Supplies trickle in, but never enough. Men rest, but the rest does not restore them. Instead, it gives the Soviets time. And the Soviets use it. Rail lines hum with activity. Divisions redeploy. Factories beyond the Urals push steel and labor into tanks, guns, aircraft. Command structures harden. Lessons are absorbed. Losses are replaced, crudely, brutally, effectively. German soldiers notice the difference immediately when they move again. Attacks meet resistance that holds. Retreats are measured, not panicked. Counterattacks are coordinated. Artillery fire walks across formations with growing accuracy. This is no longer a chase. It is a fight. The nights grow cooler. The wind changes. Dust settles, replaced by something heavier in the air. Officers talk about timetables with forced optimism. Men joke about winter coats they do not have. The calendar flips toward September. Somewhere deep in his thoughts, Guderian understands the truth before it is spoken aloud. The summer has been generous. Too generous. It has hidden the cost of distance, the strain of logistics, the danger of delay. It has made everything seem possible. But summer does not last forever. October 7th, 1941. 5:40 hours. Roads west of Vyazma. Rain arrives without warning. Not a storm. Not a downpour. Just endless, soaking, relentless rain. It falls through the night and does not stop. Boots sink ankle deep, then calf deep. Tracks churn earth into a thick, sucking paste. Trucks slide sideways into ditches. Horses collapse, legs snapping beneath overloaded wagons. The road, once a ribbon of dust and confidence, dissolves into nothing. Rasputitsa, the season no map can defeat. Engines roar, then whine, then stall. Crews jump down, pushing, swearing, slipping. Mud coats uniforms, weapons, faces. Orders are shouted because radios fail. Timetables vanish. Distances stretch. 10 kilometers becomes a full day's effort. And the Soviets wait. They know the season. They plan for it. Infantry moves on foot, light and flexible. Artillery positions are pre-sighted. Counterattacks strike flanks bogged too deep to maneuver. German armor, designed for speed and shock, is reduced to static targets. Every delay compounds the next. Fuel runs low, not because it isn't produced, but because it cannot reach the front. Ammunition follows the same fate. Supply columns string out for miles, vulnerable, exposed, easy prey for partisans and sudden strikes from the tree line. The men feel it first. Rations shrink. Dry clothes vanish. Sleep becomes brief and wet. Fever spreads. Morale drains not with a scream, but with a slow, grinding silence. Guderian rides the roads personally, his staff splattered with mud, his greatcoat heavy with rain. He sees it with his own eyes. Panzers nose down in black earth, artillery abandoned, men pulling instead of machines. This is not how Blitzkrieg dies. It suffocates. The offensive toward Moscow resumes in name only. Movement is measured in meters. Soviet defenses thicken with each pause. Trenches multiply. Minefields appear overnight. The Red Army no longer retreats blindly. It withdraws to prepare positions, then strikes back when momentum falters. German losses climb quietly. Not dramatic annihilation. Attrition. Vehicles written off not by enemy fire, but by terrain. Men evacuated not from wounds, but from sickness and exhaustion. Units that once punched holes through entire fronts now struggle to hold narrow corridors. And the weather changes again. The rain stops. For one night, the ground hardens, hope flares, engines restart, columns move, then the temperature drops. Mud freezes mid-rut, locking tracks in place like concrete. Axles snap, engines crack, lubricants thicken into useless sludge. Weapons misfire, hands lose feeling in minutes. Winter arrives without ceremony. The Germans were told it would not matter. It matters. Greatcoats are scarce. Gloves are improvised from rags. Fires are forbidden at night. So men huddle in silence, listening to the distant rumble of Soviet guns that do not seem affected by the cold. Reports flood in, frostbite cases, immobilized divisions, stalled assaults. Luftwaffe support fades as runways glaze over. Air superiority, once decisive, becomes conditional. Guderian argues fiercely. He demands flexibility. Withdrawal to defensible lines. Time to regroup. Berlin refuses. Moscow is still the prize. But now it is no longer a race. It is a siege without walls. Ahead lies the capital. Behind lies a road that may not exist tomorrow. And somewhere between the two, the German army begins to understand something terrifying. The enemy is no longer just the Red Army. It is the land itself. November 30th, 1941. For 20 hours. Forward positions, Army Group Center. The cold is no longer a condition. It is an assault. Minus 30 degrees. Breath freezes in scarves. Metal burns bare skin. Engines that ran yesterday refuse to turn today. Men strike starter motors with rifle butts. Pray over them. Curse them. Nothing answers back. Silence replaces motion. In foxholes scraped from iron-hard earth, soldiers curl inward, knees to chest, try and conserve warmth. Rifles lie beside them, bolts sluggish, grease frozen. Fingers go numb, then useless. Frostbite does not announce itself. It arrives quietly, stealing sensation before it takes flesh. Soviet artillery does not stop. Shells whistle in, their detonations sharp and brittle in the frozen air. Snow erupts like white fire. Shrapnel slices through greatcoats that were never meant for this cold. Medics work with hands that barely obey, morphine syringe snapping, bandages stiff as boards. Across the lines, Red Army troops move with grim familiarity. White camouflage blends into the snow. Ski battalions glide where wheels cannot. Supply routes function. Reserves rotate. Warm food reaches the front. They have prepared for this. The Germans have not. Entire panzer regiments sit immobile, their steel hulls rimmed with frost, exhaust ports blocked by ice. Fuel has thickened to jelly. Batteries die overnight. Tanks that once defined terror are now static bunkers. They can even fire. Guderian receives the numbers. Combat strength halved. Operational vehicles dwindling by the hour. Ammunition frozen into crates. Casualties rising without battle. Still, the order stands. Advance. The final push toward Moscow begins under a sun that offers no warmth. Infantry staggers forward through knee-deep snow, boots wrapped in rags, faces hollow. Machine guns fire in short, hesitant bursts to avoid jams. Mortars must be warmed by hand before firing. Every step forward costs blood. Then the Soviets strike back. December 5th. Fresh divisions surge from the east. Siberian troops hardened by cold, reinforced with tanks built for this environment. T-34s advance through snowfields that swallow German armor. Their wide tracks grip where others spin helplessly. The counteroffensive hits like a hammer. Flanks collapse. Outposts vanish overnight. Communications fail as lines snap and radios freeze. Units that advance together find themselves isolated, surrounded by white emptiness and moving shadows. Retreat is ordered too late. Columns attempting to pull back choke on frozen roads littered with wrecks. Soviet artillery walks its fire down the routes methodically. Panic spreads, not loud but absolute. Men abandon vehicles they can no longer start. Wounded are left behind because there is no way to move them. Guderian demands withdrawal again. This time, it is not strategy, it is survival, but authority fractures. Conflicting orders arrive from different headquarters. Some units are told to hold at all costs. Others are ordered back without clear routes. Discipline bends under pressure. It was never designed to endure. The myth breaks, not with a single defeat, but with thousands of small failures piling atop one another. By nightfall, the temperature drops further. Fires burn inside disabled vehicles despite the risk of detection. Men crowd around engine blocks, praying the metal will hold heat just long enough to keep them alive until morning. Some do not wake. The Soviet advance continues, relentless, methodical. What began as a German offensive has inverted completely. The hunters are now the pursued. Speed, once Germany's greatest weapon, belongs to the enemy. And in command vehicles scattered along frozen roads, German officers confront an unthinkable reality. Moscow was not taken. The Red Army did not collapse. And the war in the East has changed forever. Ahead lies retreat. Behind lies annihilation. The question is no longer how to win. It is how many can escape the winter. December 16th, 1941. 6:10 hours. West of Moscow. Dawn arrives without color. A pale, lifeless glow stretches across snowfields littered with the wreckage of an army that believed itself unstoppable. Burned-out panzer hulks sit half-buried in ice, their guns frozen at useless angles. Horses lie stiff beside shattered wagons. Rifles and helmets are abandoned where men collapsed, too weak to carry them any farther. The retreat is no longer organized. It is a hemorrhage. Columns that once advanced with clockwork precision now move in fragments. Platoons without companies, companies without battalions, officers leading men whose names they do not know. Maps are outdated. Roads are gone, erased by snow and shellfire. Every village is a potential trap. Every forest line hides movement. The Red Army presses hard. Soviet infantry advances in waves, supported by artillery that never seems to run out of ammunition. Tanks surge forward with confidence born of momentum. The sound of their engines carries to the frozen air like a verdict. German rear guards fight desperately, buying minutes, sometimes seconds, for those pulling back. Machine gunners fire until barrels glow faintly against the white landscape. Engineers blow bridges behind retreating columns, the explosions echoing like slammed doors. There will be no turning back. Guderian rides among the remnants, face drawn, eyes hollow. His protests to high command have ended in dismissal. The order arrives shortly after. He is relieved of command. The architect of Blitzkrieg leaves the battlefield not in triumph, but in silence. Behind him, the reality is undeniable. Army Group Center has been thrown back hundreds of kilometers. Tens of thousands are dead, wounded, or missing. Equipment losses are catastrophic. Morale is shattered. For the first time in the war, Germany has not merely failed to win. It has been defeated. In frozen trenches west of Moscow, Soviet soldiers pause only briefly before digging in again. They know the cost of survival. They have paid it before, and they understand what this moment means. The Wehrmacht can be stopped. The myth of invincibility, carefully constructed through Poland, France, the Low Countries, lies buried beneath Russian snow. The world does not know it yet. Berlin refuses to admit it, but the men on the ground feel it. This is no temporary setback. This is a turning point. Winter loosens its grip slowly, but the damage is permanent. Germany will never regain the momentum it lost here. Every campaign that follows, Stalingrad, Kursk, the long retreat west, traces its lineage back to these frozen roads outside Moscow. The prize was the Soviet capital. The cost was the future of the war. As engines fall silent and artillery moves westward, a new truce settles over the Eastern Front. Cold, immovable, and final. Blitzkrieg has failed. The Red Army endures. And the long road to Berlin has already begun.